Peter, welcome, bro.
Connor, thank you for having me.
Super excited to have you here. I suppose we'll kick things off by giving the guys a bit of an insight as to why we're here. Peter, we've done a case study interview on the channel prior and previous, and Peter's achieved some pretty big numbers since then. And so I thought it would be appropriate, since he's in Dubai for a company trip, which we'll dive into. Where have you gotten to now? Where are you progressing to in your current offer? And like, what's your highest month? What's your average month? Just to give the guys an idea.
Yeah, so previously my last video with Connor, when I was back living in Thailand, I was at $22,000 in commission. Last month, I finished up on 33, and my biggest month to date so far would be 51. And with my new offer I'm at right now, I'm probably going to be pacing towards upwards of $60,000, $70,000 months in commissions, which is pretty cool.
It's pretty crazy. And to give the guys an insight as well, how old are you?
24.
Wild. So, I never, like, it never ceases to amaze me, like the amount of opportunity that's out there for guys of our age. Like, I'm 25, you're 24. A lot of the guys I have on the channel, even between like 19, 20, 21.
23, yeah.
You're 23. Like, some people will see these interviews and just be absolutely blown away. And if you can believe it's possible, because I know some of these results might be hard to even believe that they're possible. Like, we're talking about this where we caught up for cigars the other night with Blaine, Reese, who you guys have also seen on the channel, as well as the RSA coach Lucas, where I said that with Blaine's interview doing 41K US a month, it didn't get many views for a long time because I think that most people probably just didn't even believe that was real in the first place. Right?
Yeah.
But yeah, let's talk about like why you're in Dubai, man. I mean, it's pretty crazy to see a massive progression from going to what you're doing like a year and a half, 2 years ago, which was moving concrete.
Yeah, so about 2 years ago, I was like working in construction for like one of my buddies.
Yeah.
Just like concrete pouring out. Up 2, 3, 4 in the morning, walking on frames, building houses, bathroom renovations, just like labouring stuff.
Now you're traveling to Dubai, taking sales calls, and even diving into the event that you just attended. Like, tell us more about that. Why you're here in Dubai?
Yeah, so currently on my new offer, we had a massive basically work retreat. So essentially what we do is like pretty much sell to like sophisticated people who already have money to want to pretty much like take them to the next level financially, like with stock investing, but also more importantly actually like protect it too. So with the current work retreat, pretty much flew the whole team out to Dubai. Last retreat I think they did in May was Monaco, so I think we're going to be going back there again.
Which is sick.
So yeah, surreal, and especially coming from a small town in Australia, right? And the work trip's been absolutely life changing, like perspective wise. Coming here, staying in the Palm, going out to these crazy restaurants, and going out on the yacht, everything like that. So it's just like a massive full circle moment, to be honest.
It's pretty surreal, right? Like, you tell the guys, for those of you that don't know, like the Palm, it's like, one of the most luxurious places of real estate you can buy in Dubai.
Yeah.
Like, where are you staying? Tell us more about that. Like, how expensive is the house? Just to give the guys some perspective, because it's pretty sick. Like, Peter's going on a company trip, staying in, one of the most luxurious places in Dubai. Like, what's that actually really like? You've got straight up swimming into the beach for a company trip, like.
Yeah, so if I butcher it, I'm still a tourist, so for the locals, cut me some slack. But pretty much, come in, it's like a super secluded, like private area, like gated community. Pretty much like all the heavy hitters pretty much live there. So everywhere you walk, like $500,000, multi-million-dollar supercars everywhere, like $20, $30 million mansions. So I believe where we were staying is about $7K US a night. And we had 3 villas rented out, and that was for like 5-6 nights. So quite a lot of money just put obviously into the team itself. It was just super surreal, like literally waking up, walking out in the backyard, and then, just pretty much just walking down onto the beach, and then just like diving straight into the water and then coming straight back in. Super surreal.
I'd say that's quite the contrast to the insurance sales that you used to do at that company when we and again, we can dive into a little bit of this. I'm not sure how much we'll cover, but
Yeah.
Peter and I actually used to live together. We actually moved out for the first time, I think, when I was 21, you were 20 or 22,
Yeah,
something like
21.
that.
I was 20. Yeah.
Right. And Peter at the time, he had a job for like some type of insurance sales from memory, right?
Yeah, I used to work at a telemarketing center. I was actually doing commission only there as well too.
Yeah.
But completely different, obviously, what we do, right? So pretty much just like cold calling people, just trying to like get them to like pretty much like get new health insurance and so forth. So you can imagine it was a pretty interesting conversation.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like quite the contrast is like probably the biggest reward there was like food vouchers from memory. And you got very excited about that. Whereas like compared to now, like
Yeah.
being able to go out and stay in the palm and buy and like multi-million, 10, 20, $30 million properties
Yeah.
just for fun because it's like a company trip. It's kind of
Exactly.
crazy contrast.
Completely different world. Like I remember I used to win like these like meat trays that you get from like the butchers and they have
Yeah.
like sausages, like chicken schnitzels, like or like even like the patties and stuff like that. I'm thinking, wow, like it's the best day ever. You know what I mean? So just
Yeah.
the small things.
Yeah, I remember how excited not only you but I was when you came home with a meat tray because we had so much food to cook that was not just
Yeah, 'cause-
whatever we were eating from Woolworths at the time.
It was just a completely different way of thinking because I was like back then I was like, oh my god, like I don't have to pay for food this week. Like this is insane. You know what I mean? Like, and I was like, I can actually like save some money.
Yeah, 100%. And for those of you that don't know, and I want to dive into some value for you guys as well about what Peter's doing, as well as like what's enabled him to get the results that he's gotten. But give the guys a bit of an insight. Like you've been in this space like a year and a half to 2 years, right? What do you see separates the guys who get to the numbers that you do in high ticket sales versus the guys who don't?
Yeah, I'd say it's a couple of things. One would be the opportunity itself. Now, it's going to be pretty controversial, but a lot of people say that skills are everything. To an extent, they are, yes. But if you're on an offer with like no proof of concept or like clearly, like, you can be like, we have like the saying, right? Like you said, it's like you can be the best rep on a bad offer and you might make 10K a month, but you can be an average rep on a good offer and you can still make 20, 30 US, right? So I'd say that's one thing. And then also just your basic stuff. Like, I don't want to sound, cringe or anything like that, but it's like just actually like just doing the work. And a lot of people do say that, but it's just honestly like just the cold hard truth. Like a lot of people say they do the work, but it's like a lot of people are like, one, they don't invest in themselves. Like they don't do role plays. They don't, go over their footage of like, gameplay tapes, same thing. Obviously, if you're a professional athlete, like you watch gameplay tapes, right? Obviously, it should be exactly the same thing in sales at a high level. And a lot of people you speak to, like they just aren't doing the inputs. Like they might do like, especially in the online space, right? Like they might go like one or two like one-on-ones a week with their manager, but it's like, it's just not enough. You know what I mean? Like me personally, what I was doing was like, I was obviously doing my one-on-ones, but then like, as you know, attending like weekly group coaching calls, also doing one-on-ones every single day, pretty much just your basic stuff. But it sounds boring, but the thing is the boring stuff that actually matters and actually does the difference.
I think it's the stuff that compounds over time. And I think with high ticket sales and as an industry or like really any make money online vehicle have you, it's the point where it takes quite a bit of time. Like I talk about quite regularly, routinely on the channel, like how much it takes 6 to 12 months of really hard work to get to 10K a month. It just kind of does on average. Now I've seen in recent case studies that it's more between like the 5 to 8 month range of start to see that more average on particular.
Yep.
But I think it's really being able to put in the right inputs for the long enough term duration of time and not have such a high expectation of what comes out.
For sure. And I think that's, like you said there perfectly, like when you come in with certain expectations and then, like you have like these limitations and then like, for example, it just doesn't work out for whatever reason. And then like just you self-sabotaging yourself, it's not going to do you any good. You know what I mean? So I guess like coming in with like the least expectation, obviously you want, make 10K a month, have a better life and so forth. But like just understand that like not actually focusing on the outcome and just focusing on just the input itself solely, I think was a massive thing.
Let's talk about that, right? So like being and making the level of income that you do make, right? That's quite a contrast to 2 years ago, right? Different world contrast.
Yep.
A lot of people might expect to hear that you're traveling the world, enjoying yourself, having fun. But on the flip side, I think it's important to give the guys a perspective, what your lifestyle looks like now to maintain that level of income, because it's not flying around the world and it's not enjoying yourself. It requires a lot of upkeep and a lot of, I guess...
You're not taking calls on the beach.
Exactly right, right? You're not taking calls on the beach in the palm. Like you are doing some serious work. So what's the work that's required to maintain that? what does your daily lifestyle look like?
Yep.
What hours do you work? Especially being in Australia, working like American offers. I think it's helpful for Australian guys to get that perspective as well. So paint the picture, like what does it actually look like?
Yeah. Obviously, yeah, it is a case by case, and it does, depend on the offer and, the ICP and so forth. But like for me, like living in Australia, like, there isn't too much of an abundance of Australian offers at a high level. Yes, there are some, but like they're either hard to get into and they're very like restricted, or when you get in there, you have to work your way all the way from the bottom of the ground up. I'm not saying that like it's not a bad thing, but like where I basically was in my journey, I was like, well, I'm at a point where I was like, I don't see the point of me having to start from the ground zero. Where I know there are companies out there who will take me for the skills I do have. But in Australia at the moment, I'm doing because I do like Eastern and also Pacific time. So I'm living obviously in Australia. So I'm doing like 3 a.m. starts. And then I'll do calls from then all the way to about like 12 o'clock, maybe 1 p.m. And then from there onwards, just your basic stuff like taking care of your health. Because your health's a massive thing, which I didn't realize. A lot of people do think it's just this massive hustle culture. And to be honest, it's just a load of bollocks in reality.
I think you did that for a while at some point. You were just like, fuck it. I'm just going to figure it out. No sleep. Just
exactly right. I was like, it's totally fine. But at the end of the day, like, it is massive. And like my biggest thing that, you were saying, everyone else were like, obviously like looking at my gameplay, like footage, just like, like your energy's just low. And that's because I was like, I was trying to balance all these things, like, going to work, doing that, going to the gym, being present for my partner and so forth, and trying to pretty much condense it all in without actually having like any real structure or like an actual plan in place.
Yeah, I think it's important to give that insight. I mean, I like to share as much as I transparently can on the YouTube channel about what it takes to be successful in this industry, because it's not easy.
Yeah.
And it's not some biz op where you can kind of just put a couple things together and start your own business.
For sure.
Like, it's a skill set. It's a career that you have to take very seriously.
For sure. And I feel like it's one of those things where like, a lot of people do think you can just, take a couple of calls a day, and you definitely can. I have a terminology I like to call, not saying, not throwing any shade or anything like that, but like I call them like lifestyle closers, like the guys, I want to get a lot of hate from the boys from this, but a lot of the guys who live in Southeast Asia, they'll take like 2 to 3 calls, they'll make like, maybe 8 to like, 15, 20K a month and just like, live their life. And that's fine. You know what I mean? Like each to their own. But like me personally, I feel like I've wasted a lot of time and I feel like I've got a lot of catching up to. So I'd rather just, put in the merits now and then, reap the rewards later personally.
100%. And I think, you can take an example of like what Peter's been like and like what he's done and like how you've done your career and like what you've progressed to and like what your standards and expectation is for your career. Or you can also come to this industry and be that lifestyle closer. It exists, but it just takes time, graft, and effort to get there. Like there was a point, even when we were living together, right? When I was working with Zane, I don't know if you can give some insights because obviously I was doing a lot of training outside of calls.
Yeah.
So I was pretty much just, sitting in my room all the time. I'm not sure
drilling
if you
it,
can attest to that, right?
Walking around the park, role playing yourself. Just like running the word tracks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll be like looking out my window, I'm like, what's this guy doing?
Yeah, literally. I think that was, gosh, man, like 3 years ago.
Yeah, about.
Wild. So, I was in my little hidey hole doing sales all day, but actually on sales calls, I'd take 3 to 5 calls a day max on a, Monday to Friday basis. And look, I was making like 8, 10, 12K a month for a year consistently straight. I just didn't know the opportunities that existed out there of like what the growth and potential could be to what better opportunities that you guys now have access to and like what you're aware of available because I've told you from day one, like there's so much more that's available.
And I feel like what you said there's a really good point too. Like I feel like, a lot of the newer guys who are coming out, they do get a lot easier. And I do, resent them in like a little way because it's like we pretty much like not just yourself, but also like seeing so many other students in the program getting results. You can just see like what mistakes they've made and you can just save so much time. Because like I said in the last interview, like I literally did everything wrong that you could have done. Yeah. I went from offer to offer. I didn't properly vet them. I stay in offers, hoping things will get better, wasting more time, more opportunity, like literally every single mistake.
I think it's quite unique with your perspective because you're one of the very few people that I could get on a podcast to speak to like what it was actually like when I first started. Yeah. Because I talk about like a ranting uncle or like an older dad of the high ticket sales space of like, you don't know how hard it was for me. You don't understand the graph that I had to go through, the pain, everything.
Yeah.
I think it'd be interesting to ask you about like a perspective of what it was like for me when I first got started, because that was around like 5, 6 years ago.
Yeah.
We had just, I think we just started out of high school. We just started coming out where we're just hanging out, going for walks, catching up. And I
Yeah.
think you were the one of the few people that actually was like, oh, I'm actually kind of curious on what you're doing here, because nobody would listen to me when I
Yeah.
tried doing high ticket sales 6 years ago, being like from where we're from in Tasmania.
Yeah.
Everybody's closed off to that. I didn't meet anybody in person for a very long time that was actually taking this seriously and doing well. To give like a bit of insight to the guys, like what was it like seeing from your perspective when I first got started in the high ticket sales space, and like you saw me not make money for like over a year?
Yeah, a long time. It was obviously like when we first started like hanging out, obviously, going for walks and stuff. It obviously, just like breaks your brain a bit. I'm like, so what you're telling me is I can make the same money, if not more, and I can technically live where I want and also do less hours. And not have to, like get up at 3 a.m, go drive around the state and so forth, right? So completely like broke my brain, in all honesty. But yeah, I feel like in the early stages for you, like you said, like you pretty much lived on hard mode, you could say, where it's like everyone else now pretty much has the path layer in front of them.
Yeah.
Like I said, you would be drilling it, hours upon hours a day, just practicing. And I remember you even saying it was like, you'd go to, so many offers and maybe even Sales Sniper and stuff like that as well, like helping you find roles and stuff. And it was like, you're pretty much just finding a needle in the haystack, because the space was so new as well back then.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, a lot of those offers back then, which like weren't established back then, like they're obviously killing it now, but like it took them like 2 to 3 years plus, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's like now there's definitely a lot more establishment in that regard. But yeah, like when you were doing it, like I said, you're pretty much just having to shift through like so much garbage to actually find good opportunity. And like I said, just constantly doing the reps and so forth.
I think back then I didn't know what to look for, right? I wasn't taught what to look for. I had to kind of figure that out through my own personal experience. And it's so great to see, like, it took me like, sometimes I get a little bit foggy with the timelines because it's so long ago, but
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure it was like 7 to 8 months to earn my first $300 in commissions. Like that is fucking ridiculous. Like,
yeah. Cause I remember you used to, when you first started, you used to get up at like 4 a.m, call from like 4 a.m. to like 8 a.m, 4-hour block. And then you'd go to when you're like obviously doing your job still, and you work from like 9 to 5, and then you come home and then you would do more calling from like 6 to 8 p.m. at night.
Yeah. It was a grueling time, and I earned zero money for like 3 months straight in an offer.
But that's the thing as well, right? I mean, like, if you said that to, obviously doesn't sound sexy, I mean, like, that's obviously not like a pipe dream, but it's like, if you told someone that you would have to do that for, a duration of time, and, you're not going to get anything until a certain point, most people think you're insane, right? And I think the worst part as well is like, when you get into it, like I said about expectations and so forth, like I was coming into it like, oh, I'm going to hit X, Y, Z dollars at, a certain date.
I remember how hyped up you were. You're like, man, I'm going to do this. I'm going to crush it.
I just said completely. I mean, it's good to like think like that, but you completely see yourself a failure, like realistically, because if you don't hit it, like there's a lot of variables and so forth in sales as well, right? Just like any business and obviously business model, right? Yeah. But I think the biggest problem, like you said, is like just going in and then, setting that expectation and not hitting it pretty much just sets you up for failure completely.
Yeah. I think that's why like, on the YouTube channel in general, like especially on these interviews, like I try to set the expectations as best as I possibly can.
Yeah.
Because if you have the right expectation, the right support and guidance, you can shorten the timeline and the time span to achieve that result in shorter than I've ever seen. I think it's the same thing I say on coaching calls all the time. Like, would it be just absolutely ridiculous even if you earned zero money for 7 months?
Yeah.
You got to the point where you could make 10K a month, travel the world, and have a really good skill set to where you could, again, make 6 figures plus a year. It's worth it, right?
Well, I think that's the problem, right? It's like when you get into it, you don't know when you're going to catch a break. It's like that massive like unknown void that like really like scares a lot of people, because you don't know how long it's going to be, because everyone's situation is different. You know what I mean? I think that was like the scariest part as well, especially like for me, like honestly, most people would have quit. And to be honest, I don't know why I didn't, to be honest, sometimes, but obviously, we're here now, right? So obviously we still did it, but it's one of those things where, when you're so deep, you're like, you see that point where it's like everyone else around is absolutely killing it. And I'm like, well, imagine going back and then just thinking, what if, right? And that's something like personally, I don't think I could ever live with. I don't think a lot of people could either.
I agree. And I think one thing that I really love that what I've built with RSA is, a lot of guys, I don't know if you know this, maybe you do, maybe you don't, but like a lot of guys like look up to you inside the RSA as a bit of an inspiration because you come on group coaching calls, even though that you're doing the months that you're doing, and you still ask for feedback, you still ask for advice, you give guys advice on calls as well. And it's pretty cool to see like the progression that you've made in the community. But specifically what I was going back to before is the exposure of having guys like you, like me, like at this point, like we're probably getting, 2 to 3 case studies a month or close to even, which is obscene. It's ridiculous for the make money online space. Like most people online can't even, I think we spoke about, I won't say the name of who it was, but if you remember the conversation when we had cigars, like one of these like gurus or marketers online, not particularly in the high ticket sales space, but someone you could potentially work for, got asked for testimonials and he's like, oh, we don't really have much of that.
Like the email guys were asking like, oh, can I have some testimonials for like the newsletters? Like we don't have any.
Yeah, exactly. So that is all too common in this space. And it's very rare that you have a community of guys who are doing exactly what you want to do real time, but also still present existing inside a community as well. Like I think it makes such a big difference, seeing, just as you probably saw with me as well, like, someone who personally who's actually doing what you want to do. For sure. Makes such a big difference.
Well, that's the hardest part as well, right? Like, coming from obviously where we were, like such a small town, right? In Tasmania, it's like, it's a lot. I feel like when you're in Australia as well, like I said earlier, like you're pretty much living on hardbone. And, some people could say it's cope, but whatever, right? But personally, it's like, compared to living in the States where you're pretty much surrounded by all this money. But even if you like, for example, like in some of the bigger cities in Australia, you are surrounded by money. Yes. It's just like the culture's completely different. Like, for example, when you're here in Dubai or even like, for example, in the States, like some of the guys I work with, you see a car go past and like, oh, cool. How can I get that? Like, oh, that's cool. We're in Australia. Everyone's like, who's that jackass? You know what I mean? Exactly. It's like just like completely different.
Yeah. And if you're watching this and you're in the US, you're playing with such a big advantage in terms of like the time zones you have access to a bunch of things. Like we have so many results from guys who are in Australia, but Australia is difficult in a way because it's a smaller market. But if you're based in the US or you're based in the UK, you're playing at a massive advantage. Again, I don't want people to listen to this and take this the wrong way of like, well, you can't be successful in Australia. Like,
you definitely can. Like, like I said, like there are guys doing, like Ryan, for example, like Ryan had like a 41K month. Like obviously he's doing 2 Australian offers. So it's definitely possible. And like I said, it's just one of those things you're going to go through and figure it out.
100%. Like once you get the capital and you get the control of being able to move overseas and like move to better time zones, like if you're an Australian in high ticket sales, that's just typically what I suggest to most guys anyway.
100%.
But yeah, so I think it'll be interesting to give the guys a bit of insight as well because from our previous interview, I think we touched on it a little bit.
Yep.
What have you tried to get here in terms of like making money online? What did you try? What did you fail?
Yeah.
Give us a bit of insight there.
So long story short, when I first started, I actually wanted to get into like SMMA, doing marketing, like most people do. And I was going through it. Things were going great. Found a client, but it was just one of those things. I was like young, naive, and not saying you can't do it if you're young, right? But, I was just like oblivious to the business world. I had literally no idea. Found a massive whale client and pretty much just rushed through everything. All I was thinking about is like, how can I get this money and get out of my job as quick as possible? Rush through a lot of the steps, like all of like the legalities, like behind contracts and everything like that. And give you some context, like when I was at my job, I had no money. Like I literally had to do a payment plan to pay for the coaching. And then after my bills and stuff, I'd be left with maybe like $100 a week and so forth, right? So did that. And then I was like, all right, cool. Finally caught a break, got a credit card, loaded all my ad spend on the credit card. My ads were absolutely killing it. I was getting like $7 or like $8 like cost per lead. And then we were doing like a pay per lead basis, selling them back for like $30, $35. Everything was great. Had lots of meetings with this guy. Like I said, absolutely rushed through everything. And then, went to send the invoice and everything like that. And then boom, just completely ghosted. And then next thing you know, had like thousands of dollars in debt with the credit card, still paying for the payment plan. And then I was like, I'm over this online money stuff. And then pretty much just threw in the towel. As you know, obviously I came around eventually. But that was a massive thing that like put a huge dent in me. And then, just as seeing you as well, just keep going, and me like seeing a glimpse of actually what's possible. And then me going back to, like working like on the tools and stuff like that, like in the trades, and then being like, no, like this isn't for me. And then obviously just calling you up and be like, hey, like what do we need to do?
Yeah. Got to do something different. I think alongside that as well, like one of our mutual friends, Dan, as well. It's like, I remember when we were living together in the Gold Coast in Australia, like Dan was one of the guys that was kind of leading the front for the both of us. He's like, I'm going to Europe summer. You guys should come. But at the time, like we just weren't making enough to do that. Like we didn't have the flexibility. We didn't have the control on our own schedule. We weren't making the money that we'd be able to kind of come along with that trip. And we were kind of like, shit, like we're kind of behind here. And I feel like when that happened for me with Daniel, and it probably happened with me for you. It was just like, Connor's continuing on and I'm back on the tools. Like I have to figure something out,
Yeah, 100%. And I think like you said there, like having your, like not even just circle, like just people around that you can speak to, it does make a massive difference. Because I think one of the hardest parts is not even just doing the work to get the results, but also just believing it's real. Like for example, like Daniel Quach, like in the community, like I was saying, oh, like how was it, making his first $7,000 week? And he said, to be honest, man, like I didn't even think this was possible. And he'd already been doing it for 12 months, right? So it's like, I feel like having that, proof of concept around you definitely does a lot more than people actually think.
I think it's critical. And again, that's why I'm so proud of what's been built inside the RSA, because, at this point, end of this month, I've got, a case study interview with Ivan to film. He did 20K US in a month as an appointment setter with the highest appointments in a case study.
Crazy.
Just like 30K Australian, which was ridiculous. And I think there was someone else that I'm forgetting. There's so many that I haven't filmed. There's like 10 plus that I've got to stack up of. But, we would have filmed so many case studies now with so many people that are still active inside the community, which I think makes such a big difference, because you really see, just like I was to you and, Dan was kind of to us. It's like you have that social proof and that exposure that it's real and it's possible. If you don't have anyone in your hometown that's like specifically done this, you have to get around other people online, virtually, somehow,
for sure,
who are exactly where you want to be, because it makes literally 80% of the difference.
For sure. And that's just like a proof to the testament, right? Where it's like, a lot of people say like, oh, why would you need community and so forth? Like technically you can learn everything for free on YouTube, right? But like there's only such a small percent of people who are actually going to get the results from that. Where, like I said, shout out to Dan, right? But obviously like making such a massive impact on us, like, when obviously he was our head crypto professor, for the real world, being in Tate and everything like that. Like for you and I, like in our early stages, that was like mind boggling. Like pretty much like paved the path, like what was actually possible. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I won't share specific figures, but when he told us how much money he was making, getting paid in like multiple relationships with like different communities he'd brokered, like it was kind of insane. It's a whole nother story. So shout out to Dan. He's just some guy that was just some surfer dude that was making ridiculous money at the time, driving like a beater car with a surfboard, making ridiculous money, but he was just living just like the most casual lifestyle. Was just blown away.
Yeah. And he taught me a lot as well. We're not going to go into it too long. But it was like, I remember one time I was in the car with Dan, right? Dan's going to laugh at this. And we're in this like beat up Commodore. He's got this surfboard on the roof. And at this point, let's just say he's worth like a lot of money, right? And then I'm thinking, man, like, why don't you get like a BMW, like a Merc? Like, you've got the money. And then basically says like, that's what poor people do, bro. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, I'm trying to go from like average car to like, like Ferrari level, like not like go through all this like bullshit, like in the middle stages. Like that's why it takes people so long to actually get to like a very, very high level, because they just get so caught up in all like the middle stages in between. So I thought that was a massive testament and helped a lot too.
Makes total sense to where he's at now, right? I mean, I know he has the figures publicly, but I won't mention it in the podcast. Like, he's doing extremely well for himself at a really young age. I think he's 26 now, so it's pretty cool to see how far he's come. But we're slowly kind of tagging behind. We're going to eventually catch up, but
we're getting there.
Yeah, we are getting there. But I think even at the time when you started other businesses as well, because I know you started a digital marketing agency too.
Mm-hmm.
Like I think even at some point you were trying to start like a fitness business, like become a fitness coach. I think you, me, and I won't say his name, but someone from our hometown, we were on a three-way call trying to like build our businesses.
Yeah, I tried everything, man. I was like I said, doing the the marketing agency, tried to do like a fitness business as well, and I was like, oh, everyone's doing online fitness. I was like, why can't I? Just watching tons of YouTube videos and everything like that. And then it was like that thing as well. I think the biggest thing was like I did all these inputs, but because I didn't actually financially commit, that's why I wasn't as committed as what I should have been. And that's why a lot of people say like, why should you pay for coaching, right? But it's like the reality is all the information is free out there already, right? But it's like because you're getting it for free, you're not actually gonna take it on board as much as you would actually like committing something to financially. It's like the same thing where it's like as a kid, as like an example, let's say you break something that's not yours, you're like, oh, like that sucks. But like if you actually bought it with your own money, obviously it's going to hold a lot more weight to it because it's actually coming out of your own pocket. So I think that's a massive thing specifically about like actually financially backing yourself and having some form of commitment to what you're doing as well.
I completely agree, and I think there was a story that I've told once before, which is like my old mentor and his brother who ran a business together. Yeah. They sold their business coaching for multiple different price points and experiments. It was like 5K, 4K, 3K, 2K, 1K, and even for free.
Yeah.
And they found out that the guy who got the best results was the person who paid
the most,
5K in full. And it's funny how that works. And I think a lot of people, even if you might have the objection or concern in your mind of like, why would I pay so much money for information or this, that, and the other thing? The big thing is, I agree with Peter. All information is out there. It exists out online on the internet. It's just the implementation and the transformation that you can get from actually working with someone with experience closely makes such a profound difference. I've found that with every bit of coaching and mentorship I've done in my life.
Yeah.
Having that one-to-one support and having that proximity and that exposure to someone who can solve your problems at a rate much faster than you would on your own, that makes the big difference. Not only the money that you pay to commit and that means that you've committed energy towards like the transformation specifically, but the ability to, again, solve problems in a compressed timeline makes the biggest difference. Because again, if I had myself when I started 6 years ago, who knows where I would have been, right? Yeah. Whereas like guys who are on the YouTube channel, inclusive of yourself, it takes 6 months to 12 months to get to 10K a month. And then we've got guys like yourself who are doing, 50K plus a month. We've even got guys like Naveed. I don't know how much he's done, right?
I think like 80.
Right. So maybe we might get him on a podcast when he comes to buy next time in person. But, like you've got such a range of guys who are earning so much money, but they're doing this in like a 6 month, a year, 2 year timeline, which is obscene.
Yeah, exactly. And I think what you said there as well, right, is like really important. Actually having like tailored information to you. Like for example, like with like everything, even for like a massive selling point as well. It's like you can definitely learn everything out there for free. But it's like the strategy or, whatever your, regardless of the context, right? If you're not getting information that's going to be tailored to you and your needs, it's like, it's going to take so much longer. You know what I mean? And like you said earlier, you can definitely find it all out there for free, but it's a question of what do you actually value more, like money or time? You know what I mean?
A great question I have for you, which I think would be very interesting to guys who are looking to get in this space and industry or who are already within it. Maybe they've been in it for 3, 6 months, 8 months. How did you get through your darkest hour in this space industry? Because you've ate a lot of shit.
Yeah.
You've had problems just like everybody does in this industry. It's not a, it's not like a perfect scenario where you just kind of roll out and you just make the money you make.
For sure.
Like, how did you survive that? How did you get through that? Because there's been times where you've made no income at all, right? Yeah. And you've worked a lot of time for free. Like, how did you get through that?
I'd say it's a couple of things. First and foremost, by the way, you can definitely get there in a couple of months. It's definitely possible, right? We're just not trying to be all doom and gloom, right?
Yeah,
but to be like more conservative, I made literally every single mistake, like you said. I actually was in sales, made no money for ages, had to go back to working on the tools, and then had to get money up and then come back to sales again. But during let's say like the darker parts, I would just say like, just like a typical sales call, right? Like just like, just cost of an actioning myself. It's like, what are going to be the ramifications of my life if I don't figure this out. And like you said earlier, you know, some people would take 6 months, 12 months, or 2 years. If you really mapped it out to someone and like a silver platter, and you're like, if you give up 12 months to 12 to 24 months and you can make X amount of dollars and live this life, anyone would do it in a click of a finger, right? But if they're not willing to go through, you know, the peaks and valleys, as you say, like going through all the ups and downs, right? So I definitely would say like the biggest thing for me was just like the realization, like if I just don't figure it out, like this is going to be my reality. And that's something I wasn't willing to live with pretty much.
Powerful. And I think it's like that's really helpful advice for guys who've been in this space for a while, a couple months, or again, you're looking into it. Not only the expectation, but also how to handle it. Because it's not easy to handle when you're not making any money. It's not easy to handle when you're putting in all this effort and all this work and you're not getting the, you know, the bare fruit of, you know, results and outcomes.
Yeah.
If I was going to ask you a question around the opportunities that have opened up for you, right? You've gone from working in laboring, right?
Yeah.
Making how much a week on average?
Maybe like 1,000, 1,200
1,000,
with overtime
a week, right? It's like 4K a month, 4.4, 4.8. And, you know, you're putting in hard graft, you're working a lot of hours for that. What opportunities has opened up now that you've got to this level of income? You're able to travel places, you're able to come to retreats in Dubai. What's different for you now? Like what is the growth for you in the future? And like what can you see happening now that you've unlocked this level of income, but also the freedom as well?
Yeah, I'd say one of the biggest things is, like you always said, it's like survival mode. Like when you start, you know, earning that type of money, or just like a lot more than what you used to, and you pretty much aren't worrying about money at all, like bills and stuff wise, it gives you like a lot of clarity, like a different way of thinking. And I feel like it gives you like a lot of like peace of mind as well, which is something like I never had before. And you know, you're constantly stressing, right? So like having like a lot of clarity about, okay, cool, now I can do what I want to do, and really how can I get to the next level? And I think like with sales too, like you said, it opens up a lot of avenues where it's one of those things where there are definitely a lot of business models out there you can make a lot more money than sales. But I feel like it's one of those things where it's got massive building block material, and also just like conversationally as well. It's like, you know, we always like make the joke, like when you go out there to like a meeting with other people and you can tell like they're not in sales by the way they speak, you know what I mean? Yeah. So I feel like it's a massive building block, like foundationally, if you do want to go start other businesses, it's going to be an absolute walk in the park. Like Jack says as well, it's like, you know, because you've gone through so many peaks and valleys in sales too, it's like you'll pretty much kill any business model.
I agree. And I've seen that personally myself, as well as like so many other clients I've had who've progressed to go start their own business in the back end.
Yeah.
You know, they've done extremely well. Not everyone, granted given, but most people do extremely well because, like you said, they've gone through those peaks and valleys, but they've also learned foundationally how to sell, which most business owners, I'm sure you've found in your experience, like even previous business owners that you've worked with in the past, they don't know shit about how to sell. Like they couldn't sell if they tried. Like it's always like the educating or this or the expertise and topic. Like if you can learn how to sell and you can learn how to sell well, the foundations that you build for going to start your own business in the future is just exponential. I've just seen that experientially through myself, but so many other clients I've worked with.
For sure. And like with sales as well, it's like, you don't have to start a business too. Like there's obviously you know, a lot of avenues you can go to, like especially like you say with the businesses itself though, you can go into managing at a high level, you can do consulting. So you can a lot of people take like their skills from the high ticket space and go into like more like the big corporate world and do that. Or, you know, for example, just running like agencies and so forth. Like there's, you know, multitude of opportunities that you can pretty much go down. So you're never going to be like, it's not like sales is like the only thing you do and that's it. Like it is, like I said, a massive building block, and you can pretty much go into so many other things as well. Because that's a lot of thing for, you know, and a big goal for a lot of sales reps. Like they don't want to be on the phones forever, right? It's definitely, you know, it's great. Like it sounds all good and all, but there comes to a point where you actually want to leverage your time even further. That's why a lot of people do go into the consulting aspect. So that way you know, for example, get rev share or retain and stuff like that in businesses. And that way you can actually, you know, coach other sales teams. And then rather than you having to, you know, take all the calls yourself and getting, you know, 10, 20%, whatever you're getting, pretty much you're getting 10, 20% or whatever it is your cut is on the business out of all the other stuff that they're actually managing yourself.
Yeah, no, it's huge. And I think I get asked this question quite frequently in the DMs or, you know, calls I take for the business, which is like, or even my team, which is that where do you see high ticket sales being in the next 5 years? It's like, kind of asking the wrong question. Like high ticket sales as a career isn't something that you should be aiming to do for the next 10 years. It's not something that like
Yeah.
you're not going to want to be on sales calls the rest of your life. Maybe like 1% of you that are watching this probably will, but it is a vehicle to get to the next best thing. And it is one of the best vehicles to start out foundationally if you have no skills, no experience. Maybe you're quite a young guy as well, or even you're older. It doesn't matter. But like you're starting off with a pretty clean slate, and you want to learn how to become valuable to the world and valuable to a marketplace. High ticket sales as an industry and as a skill set is the best place to build your skills, like you mentioned.
Yeah.
You don't have to start your own business after it. You can become, again, inherently more valuable because you know how to sell, you know how to run teams, you know how to run the profit margins for a business, manage their finances, manage cash flow, manage marketing, systems, operations, all these skill sets you can accrue over time if you intentionally do it in this space and industry.
Yeah. And I think a big thing that you said just then as well about like accumulating your skills. I remember you said it like when we first started, and you say in all the, the trainings and so forth and the group coaching, it's like once you have a skill, you'll literally never not need to worry about money ever again. And I think like that speaks volumes, to be honest, because like it's so true. It's like realistically, if I hit absolute zero, lost everything for whatever reason, and even if I like lost my offer, I still have the skills so I can go to any other offer and perform and obviously make it back. So I think that's a crazy thing as well.
I think you definitely walk different and you feel different when you know that no matter what happens, everything can go to shit.
Yeah.
You can lose all your money, you can lose all your assets. As long as you know how to sell and you know how to navigate whatever industry it is and get jobs, as long as you've got those two skill sets, you're always going to be fine. I think my worst case scenario, I think I spoke about this on an interview with Reese, which was like when I started my content agency like 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, I think. My worst case scenario was depleting my savings and going back to live in my parents' place temporarily for 3 months, making 10K a month. Like that was
worst
my
case scenario.
worst case scenario. Other people's worst case scenarios is being homeless, right? It's a very big range. So very big difference in contrast.
It was the same thing with me, right? I was like, I gave it a go, made a lot of mistakes, and then, lost everything, had to go back to a job. I was like, well, worst case scenario is go back to a job, right? Yeah. And then, gave it another go, you know what I mean? But a lot of people, like when they do quit, they never come back to it. And I think that's even worse. Like I said, like I was saying earlier, like going towards the very end and then always thinking, what if?
Yeah, I think most people's best case scenario is your worst case scenario in that instance.
Yeah, for sure.
And I think even in the context of Rahul, for example, as well, I'm not sure if I've said this publicly or whatever, but Rahul, so one of my top performing clients, I mean, you might speak more to him than I do now, but he averages between like 33, 34K US a month in commission.
Yeah, about.
Yep. So, he started his own business, came back, didn't do so well at it, didn't like it. And he just picked up a brand new role, making that same level of income within a matter of, a couple of weeks, I think. Yeah. 3-4 weeks from like having, not really going the business the way that he wanted to, and then just coming back to the industry and just smashing it. Yeah. Now I think he's on a great role where I don't even think he even works so much, right?
Yeah, not really much, yeah.
Right. So it's an amazing skill to have and build. And if you're looking for a place to start, I really do generally believe wholeheartedly, like high ticket sales could be the best place as long as you are willing to risk not making money for a little bit for a massive upside in the long term. It's a skill set that builds over time. For
sure. I couldn't agree more.
Cool. All right. Well, is there any notes or takeaways that you wanted to leave the rest of the potty? I'll put you on the spot.
Honestly, I'll just say, like, if you are thinking about it, like, not to sound cliche, but like, what do you really have to lose at the end of the day? At least you can say you try. And, I always say to myself, like, what is your worst case scenario realistically? And yeah, I would just say that, like I said, coming from my personal experience, I've gone through so many ups and downs. I literally made every single mistake you could have as a sales rep and wasted so much time, and it still worked out for myself, right? So if you are going through like a lot of the, peaks and valleys right now, just know that, not to sound like inspirational, but like there is actually like a light at the end of the tunnel, and like the only time you lose is when you quit.
Love that. Cool. Well, dude, thanks for hopping on.
Awesome. Thank you for having me.
No worries, bro.
Thanks, bro.